Now that I've experienced the syncing process, right?
Yes.
Like on first blush, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like having just done it, I'm like, oh, that does make some sense, but it's so much harder than it needs to be. Anyway,
No, I see what you mean. Cause like, no, if any system fucks up, we're fucked.
Yeah. So what? Because yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. You've had no issues so far, I assume.
Nah, it's fine. I don't remember having issues, so I'm pretty sure it's all good.
I also want to point out that Damo was like, yo, I'm making tea. And like when I said make a drink, I made an old fashioned, which is like 3 ingredients. It's like whiskey, bitters, and an orange. And like when you're like, I'm making tea, I just looked at what I was doing and I was like, different versions of chill, I guess.
Hello and welcome to I'll Sleep When I'm Done Talking, in which we'll sleep and we shut up. I'm Connor.
I'm Damon.
That's a very aggressive way to. Anyway, I'm David. Hello. Was I supposed to introduce myself? I'm not sure what the.
It's David. He's back.
Hey.
What's up? What's up? It's late night, David. Okay, we're gonna be talking. We're gonna be talking slow. We're gonna be chilling. All right, that's how we do it.
Yeah, we're gonna try and actually hit the comfy vibe. This week's episode is childhood TV shows because we thought that would be fun.
Yeah,
and we
It does feel like a topic that Connor has deliberately engineered to make me feel old.
You say that, but my first example is from the 40s, so.
What does that mean?
What
are you talking
Is it Scooby-Doo?
No, that's from the late 60s, early 70s. Damn,
You're right. Yeah.
So I realized that when I was looking at like the TV shows that I grew up on, they start in the 40s and end in the early 2010s.
What are you talking about? Sorry. What do you mean by 40s?
Popeye.
Popeye?
I grew up on the old
Did you
Popeye cartoons.
Grow up in the Depression? Like, what's... What do you mean by... What do you mean? That was on... What? That was on TV?
It wasn't on TV. I'm pretty sure we had, like, VHSs.
Oh, yeah, okay.
VHSs or DVD, like, early DVDs, surely. I don't know how. I just remember vividly, like, watching a lot of Popeye as a kid.
Did you guys have that experience of, like, and maybe this is really going to age me, but... So, we didn't really have DVDs growing up. What we did have is... So, I would go to, like, my grandparents' place or whatever, and they would always have, like, the 7 or 8 VHS tapes that were like kid oriented that they'd acquired over the years. And that was sort of like initially how I consumed a lot of content was like, oh, here's one VHS tape of season 1 episode 7 to 12 of Dragon Ball Z or something. Like it was always something real, like, you know, like you'd be dropped into the middle of a weird show you had no idea about. And that was kind of like my initial kind of blush with I guess like actual like kids oriented content. Did you guys ever have that experience or?
Not exactly that.
My great grandparents they had like that VHS tape set up, and that's how I watched the original Inspector Gadget.
Oh my god, that makes me feel 1,000. Yeah.
I'm like no, yeah, that's it. Like that's how I saw like Inspector Gadget and a couple other shows. I'm pretty sure was through that method, but usually we just had the VHS tapes.
Wait, do you mean like the cartoon or like the
cartoon
live action? Damn, I remember when that came out. That's upsetting. Damn, I feel like you flinched at like not that experience. That sounded like some trauma or something.
I just had my own VHS tape set up, but all I had was like Rugrats and Wiggles and something else. I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh, I had Ice Age. That was kind of it.
Yeah, Ice Age rips. That's like legitimately a great.
I mean, I burnt through an entire DVD to the point like my parents like we're gonna have to buy another one.
Yes,
what does that mean?
I just you know how you wear down a VHS? I think I did that with a DVD.
I
don't know what happened, but I had to get a replacement.
You really like Ice Age. That's what happened.
I fucking loved Ice Age.
That's great. That explains a lot, actually. I feel like this is the type of vibe where you're like, actually, I know Ray Romano best from Ice Age, and that's like, that's my favorite.
I mean, John Leguizamo, you know.
Good point. Damn. I haven't thought about Ice Age in a long time.
I like how derailed we're immediately, and it's good. Yeah.
It's just immediately, yeah. What y'all think about like the sequels and stuff? Because I feel like that's a contentious issue for some people.
Ooh, yeah. I
I'll
liked
let Damo
them
go first.
mostly. How many sequels were there again? 4 or 5?
There's 6.
Wait, when was?
What do you mean?
When was there a
just
6th one?
No, I didn't say just
What?
6. I said there are 6. Okay, so the first
Ice
one
Age
came out.
franchise.
Okay, the 6th one I'll get to. So the first one, that was like an all-time masterpiece.
2002 for those.
And then that would have been 2002. I don't know when the second one came out, but that is the one in which like obviously the meltdown happens. That one I remember being pretty fine. It's called Ice Age to the Meltdown.
It's called the Meltdown. Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia. That's good.
The third one I want to say is like 2010, and I want to say that was Dawn of the Dinosaurs.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Then I want to say 2014 was 20. Yeah, 20. It was either 20.
What's it called?
That was Continental Drift.
Yes.
Yep. You got you're a few years ahead, but you got that name.
Okay,
Right.
2012 then.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it might be. That one is the one that is. Look, the third one is fine and like is able to survive, and it's kind of good with Buck, with that character, because he's like a fresh character. It's like a really interesting character to me. Like, okay, that's cool. That's something fresh in this franchise that is clearly dying.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one people like because the pirates.
Yep.
And that's.
I like the pirates.
Peter Dinklage plays the main one. He's a big monkey. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that.
You don't have to. And then the fifth one
you
is
can. It's pretty
2018. And that one is one I actively quite dislike. But the last time that it was put on was my roommate and Damo, was Corey and Damo, and they had a good time with it. But I didn't.
What's that one called?
That one is called Collision Course.
God damn. So your years, you're a little too eager. I think you're overshooting a little.
2016.
But you're like a human Wikipedia. Like it's unbelievable.
I know. I'm also a bit wrong, and that's good too.
That's also good. Yeah, being a bit wrong is important. It keeps you humble.
And then that's all the ones that Blue Sky made, and then Disney bought out 20th Century Fox, which also required Blue Sky. They shut down Blue Sky, and then they made a 6th film. Now this one I haven't seen.
That's the spin-off, right?
No, it's called like Ice Age. It's like Buck's, not a Buck's Adventure.
Oh, that one.
You pretty close. You almost nailed it. Try and guess. Like it's a pun to do with Buck. I feel like you're close.
Oh,
you might be too young for this. It's Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild.
Okay.
Because his name is Buck.
Buck Wild. Yeah, that's right. No, the thing with that one is it was a straight to Disney Plus film in which you look at it. Like I remember the trailers came out and I was like at least just the other Ice Age films, while the quality and like writing and story dipped a lot more, the animation just kept going up. Where number 6, they clearly like Disney stepped on it and went, oh ew, I guess we can make this into something. You're like, that's sad. But that is the Ice Age movies.
That was a really good. That was a visit into Connor's brain for a minute. Yeah. Damn it, what do you think about Ice Age? What do you think? What do you think about Ice Age?
I've seen up to number 4, and I like all of them.
You saw 5. You watched 5.
I really don't remember 5.
That's fair enough. It's not quite memorable, but I just said you watched 5, and you're like, I only watched the first 4, and I'm like, but I was there.
Dog, there are moments in my life where someone will say, oh, have you seen XYZ? And I'm like, absolutely not. I don't remember that at all. And then someone will like be able to pull up on their phone a like 1 hour podcast of me talking about it. Like, so, it's like, and like I'd done like 30 hours of research on it. And I'm like, I've never seen that. They're like, here is you doing a literary dissection of it. So like, I'm totally on Damo's team on this one. Like if you consume enough content, it'll just becomes fucking wild.
That's fair. Like, that's fair enough.
Yeah. Here's one thing I don't understand about Ice Age, and this could just be me, but so the conceit of Ice Age is obviously such a dumb thing to say. Obviously the Ice Age is happening.
Yeah.
That's the initial one, right? Is like, what do we do with all this Ice Age that's happening? And then as it goes on, they feel this need to like continue to like, it becomes less about the Ice Age and more about the characters, which is fun. Yeah. It's a franchise. But what I would say is like at least Shrek as a franchise had the balls to be like each film is going to be about a different thing. And I think they're interesting franchises to contrast because, you know, in order of quality, it goes Shrek 1, Shrek 2, Shrek 4, Shrek 3. Where Shrek 4 is like clearly they really rolled some dice went for something interesting. I feel like Ice Age as a franchise suffers from these, like, they're funny characters to spend a bit of time with. But after a while, you're like, oh, there's like, you either have to, as you said before, kind of like invent new characters to add to the mix, or like they're just like isn't interesting dynamics for them to have moving forward. Like it's sort of like this weird issue that I think a lot of sitcoms kind of have, where it's like they're just like not necessarily interesting to be around all the time. And I just think it's a really interesting one where like they kind of have to keep working through all these crazy hoops to make it anything, and that's, I don't know. I think it's really interesting.
No, I think you're pretty right on that one, because like I was just thinking about it and I'm like, well, the third film had Buck, which really brought like a bit of a new energy to it. But all the old characters, apart from like maybe, oh, Sid was doing his subplot with the dinosaurs, so that was all right. But like it was just, you kind of sit there and be like, we could, yeah, this is kind of done. And then with the fourth film, they brought in Granny, which is like Sid's grandmother, whose family are like, hey, remember how we ditched you in the very first movie and have never seen you again? We're back to drop off your grandmother, Toodles. And then they leave. They just fuck off. And then the grandma character
respect the continuity.
And then it's... And then, well, yeah, that's mostly fair. I'm like, yeah, what did happen to the humans in the first one?
Yeah.
They had humans in the first one. They never appeared again.
That's not a question any person has asked, except in a writer's room with 5 other writers being like, what do we do with the 5th one?
I don't know. We're gonna bring Buck back, and when they go into Buck's head, Neil deGrasse Tyson's gonna play one of the Bucks that is gonna be thinking with them, because Buck.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, he play.
You have to quickly look up Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's the other science guy.
What are you talking about?
What?
Did you have a stroke at some? What are you talking about?
Hold on, am I saying the wrong name? Hold on.
No, this is. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Connor,
so...
I think you gotta fully play this entire clip in the. I don't know how the copyright's gonna go, but you need to play this entire clip.
Wow. Oh, the Buck thing from
Oh my god! This is
incredible.
That.
Yeah, from the movie you've seen, Damo. Yeah, it's.
I really have no memory of this movie, dude.
Fair enough. It's not very good.
I think
you liked it. You liked it.
Did I?
There was one character in which I was sitting there being like, I really dislike this character so much, and then you and Corey were like, nah, he's great. We're having a good time, and I'm like, I just gotta sit here and be quiet because you guys are having a lovely time and I don't want to ruin that.
I feel like Lovely's too high of a bar if Damon doesn't remember shit about it. Like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, look.
Or maybe it was a relaxing time.
I could at very least put up images of this clip.
I feel like if you can sneak in a bit of audio, because you just got to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson doing his. What was the show he was making at the time? It was the Carl Sagan sequel show. Fuck, I can't remember what it's called.
I have no idea.
This is embarrassing. This is like this was my bread and butter for a while. It's like called The Universe or something. I can't recall. Anyway, but yeah, just hearing him do a voice of a little guy is very fun.
He appeared in so many cartoons. He was in an episode of Gravity Falls, in which he played a pig.
Okay, so they just called, because I listened to his podcast Star Talk when it first started. It turns out the show was Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey, which was his successor to Carl Sagan's original Cosmos, A Personal Voyage, which I remember as a kid. And it's just, he's such an interesting public figure. He's done so much weird stuff. He was in an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine that I was watching the other night. And I was like, that's just Neil Tyson.
He was one of the main, not main side characters, but like a main, but a side character in a TV show called Future Worm.
What are you
Now,
talking
this
about?
TV show it aired on Disney. I think it got like 2 seasons. That's it, and it was about like a 12-year-old kid and like a worm with a mullet and a worm from the future with like a blonde mullet and like a 6-pack, and it had like it had like the same like base like thing of like how, and this is a crazy comparison, but when I was watching it, I remember being like, this just feels like it kind of felt like a different, like a Rick and Morty type show. Like, obviously it was because they were going through different, like, time periods and universes and stuff like that, but it had, like, this weird energy to it that's like, right, okay, this is straight, and then, like, coming across, like, future use. It was, like, from the bits I remember seeing of it, like, glimpsing from, like, TV, I'm like, no, this seems pretty well done, and then I think Disney just canned it after 2 seasons. And in, like, the last episode, they're like, well, they're traveling through dimensions, so we're just gonna have a cameo for every other Disney show. And I'm like, that's cool.
That seems
cool.
fun. I
It-
mean, it just, yeah.
I'd have to actively look into it to see if it's, like, any good from a standpoint as to now, but from when it came out, I remember being like, yeah, no, this seems relatively well made.
Apparently, Neil Tyson plays himself. It describes him as the guy who knows everything about science, who is also telepathic. Not sure what to make of that. So
That's right, he does play himself, yeah, and he's like a super. Anyway, it's.
I'm kind of in love with the fact that like his entire like Hollywood career is just him being himself, except for the one time he was in Ice Age and was a weird ferret guy.
But
Like,
but
that's
it's
so
still
weird.
playing himself.
Yeah, but he's still him. He's got the same hair. It's so weird.
The
man.
only-
they,
yeah.
they even give him the vest that he owns. Like
I
that's his
know,
famous
it-
vest. They give the little fucking weird ferret guy the vest.
I just like, again, the only example I could think of when he plays a character that's not him, it's one of the anthology episodes of Gravity Falls in which Waddles the pig eats like a smart like plant potion thing and then becomes hyper intelligent, and they just get him to be played by Neil deGrasse Tyson. And like, yeah, it's good. We just got him on call. We're able to get him into the show. It was really good.
That entire sentence was like another language.
Anyway, another TV shows from the past.
Yeah, sorry. We
We're like
completely
20
dive-
minutes in almost.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You
It's all
said
good.
you said some insane shit about Popeye, and that's how we got here.
Yeah, I
so-
grew. Yeah, like I have like
Wait, you need to explain yourself with the Popeye thing, because like,
I
because
grew, there was a my grandparents for a bit. They like when I was very young. They had Foxtel. So with that came the channel Boomerang, and my theory is that's where a lot more of the because Boomerang was a channel that because when Cartoon Network originally started in the 90s, it was to house all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Pretty much. But then but when they started to make more original stuff, they made a second channel called Boomerang to house all the older cartoons, just to have there constantly running on replay, on stuff like that. So that's where I got a lot of exposure to stuff like the Flintstones or Wacky Races or Looney Tunes, and Tom and Jerry. So like, also Captain Caveman. I just wanted to put that one in there because I remember I
Who?
watched that one. So Hanna-Barbera did a thing in which they made Scooby-Doo, and they're like, wait, this is a winning formula. If we just get a couple teens and like a thing, that will be a success.
They
and so
did
you
make
get,
a bunch of clones.
So
did
then
they?
you get shows of like, I don't remember the names. It's like a bunch of teens and a shark that can talk, a bunch of teens and a
that's
dune
right.
buggy, a bunch of teens and a ghost, a bunch of teens, they're just a band. And one of them was Captain Caveman. And it wasn't like a bunch of teens, it was like one teen, and for some reason I can't remember how true this is, but my brain keeps combining Captain Caveman and Josie and the Pussycats as like one show. But I think it was just because Captain Caveman had like the teens were three like women who were just in a band and did songs, and Captain Caveman would sometimes sing.
yeah, I don't think there was any overlap there for being
I'm
candid.
pretty sure there's not, but
It's weird to think about Josie and the Pussycats as a TV show.
oh yeah, because of
And-
the movie.
Yeah.
I forget there's a movie.
Oh my god.
So I'm like, yeah, the TV show from like the 60s, 70s.
I think I blacked out the other week, and there was an episode of Archer that was on the television when I woke up, and I think they were in it. because like obviously that draws a lot on the Barbera comics, and the
Right.
idea of like remembering Josie and the Pussycats as a show from when I was a kid, and to see them in the show Archer, and like one of them's like his love interest or whatever, is
Aw.
the most bizarre shit of all time. Like it's so weird.
Yeah,
Um,
no, like it. Yeah, no, look, fair. It's always weird when like something comes back. You're like, oh no, you should have stayed in the pub. Why are you making reference to it? What are you
It's
doing?
just yeah, such of an era.
Archer, you're drunk. Go home.
Archer, what are you doing? Why are you still happening? I've separated my list into two categories.
Okay. Good.
So I have kids shows that are
Mm.
like shows directed at kids. Then I have adult shows, both of which I consumed at the same time.
Yeah.
My kids show is fairly predictable. Ben 10. We've already talked
Yeah,
about this.
we did
alright?
that. We did that. We did 4 episodes on it. We covered
Big-
it.
Big tick. Digimon, specifically the first season. Watched a lot of Digimon. So we didn't have pay TV when I was growing up because we did not have any money. And so all of my exposure to any of this stuff was either DVDs. So the kids show specifically, DVDs weren't around yet for this stuff. It was VHS or bust. We didn't have money for VHS. So all these kids shows I was catching on like either morning television slots, like before school at like 6 a.m. or like at a friend's place. Like Ben 10, I already talked about this. I consumed it a lot at a buddy's place. But so Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, I consumed a lot on their like 7 a.m. slot on Cheese TV,
Oh, jeez.
which is gonna make me sound 1,000. But that was like the tail end of my experience, and it was interesting.
Made me have a
Be-
memory. But continue.
Yeah. What a weird format of a product to put out into the world. And I remember Cheese TV specifically because they would have interstitial bits like a lot of kids more shows did, but they would be at places that you had been to. So they would do like a morning show, but it's at SeaWorld or something. Like it was bizarrely local, or they'd be doing like they'd be doing a morning show, but it was at oh god, what's the zoo in Fig Tree Pocket called?
The Koala Sanctuary.
Yeah, they do like an episode from there one morning.
Really?
Like it was just it was bizarrely local because they were just like all around the country. Like they would just fly them to play. It was very cheap to film stuff. You have like
Yeah.
literally a crew of one person and 2 hosts. Like it was pretty easy to do. But yeah, like I consumed a lot of Digimon that way, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh. But the catch was, and this is why like so much of my view of like kids shows is so fucked up, is we never got to watch recurring episodes because like you'd get like half an episode of Digimon and then you'd have to go to school, and then the next morning you'd be at like before school care and you get the back half of a different episode of Digimon from like a different season. Like it was rarely sequential. And so a lot of my experience of like these shows was sort of, especially with something like Digimon or Yu-Gi-Oh, where it's like it's one, it's an anime, right? So it's like one story, but it's sequential on their individual episodes. It was really hard to know what they were even really about. Like you get the base mechanic, but you'd be like, why are these fucking kids out here with these monsters all of a sudden? And you'd spend like an entire season being like, I don't understand. What is their stake in this? And then at the end, you'd get to like the penultimate episode, and you'd happen to catch a flashback of like the first episode you never saw. You'd be like, oh, they were just normal kids in Tokyo. That's sick. But that was a lot of my experience. Like this really disjointed mess of just snippets of kid shows between adverts or between different like moving parts of life, and it was really a weird way to consume content. I think it's a big part of the reason why like I don't particularly enjoy is the wrong word, but it's why I've never gravitated toward like cartoons or anime or anything like that. It's because that was my first experience with it. It's like this really kind of jumbled mess of just like I like the aesthetics, I like the ideas. War Greymon's fucking cool as hell, but like I didn't really connect with any of it, which is super interesting.
Yeah, no, look, fair. The memory you made me realize is, oh, I forgot that was like Cheese TV was my first, because I also watched got glimpses of Yu-Gi-Oh, so you're like, I think I get it, but I have no idea what's happening. But
it was
also
weird.
Naruto and One Piece, but the 4 kids dub.
Oh, that was well after my time, but yeah.
But yeah, that's what I caught, and I remember and that was fun because it was crazy that to learn that because my roommates were just hanging out or just going through a bunch of music videos, just going through stuff and chatting about anime, and we're like, oh, they track on the One Piece theme, and I'm like, huh. I'm like, I know this is the original one, but do you guys know the Four Kids like rap that they did? And they're like, what? And I'm like, you guys don't know about this?
What are you talking
You
about?
guys are old. For the Four Kids dub of One Piece, which was One Piece the edit in which like they'd get rid of like guns and make them like water guns, and they get rid of cigars and make them lollipops. It was horrendously done. But
the classic Four Kids of formula.
Yeah, but what they did was the theme song, like for One Piece, was a rap. Like they made it like this rap, and like it's bizarre. It's fun when I like show my roommates because like this does not fit the show at all, and I'm like, that's fair, but this is the one. I'm like, no, I remember this. I remember this being like, oh no, time to not watch television anymore.
To be fair, I'm listening to it right now, and I don't say this lightly. It's kind of bars, like it's kind of the whole way bars right now.
It's a weirdly not terrible thing. It just because I've never seen One Piece outside of my not fond memories growing up with it, but that and then but the other two I've actually seen the show and went, no, that is not the vibe of the show.
It's
very
not,
different.
but
it's such a it's one thing. That is such a product of its time.
it's bizarre, but it is all the way bars, so I'm kind of behind it.
No
Yeah.
fair.
That rips. I got like this is like the anti vibe of the show, but I got kind of a little bit flushed. Listen, I was like kind of up on the beat. I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, where's the second verse? Like, what's up?
I'm gonna swap over to Damo. What other shows did you watch? Because I have written too many for you, too many to go into. So I'm gonna give it to you for a bit.
Well, I mean, like, I didn't watch a ton of, like, TV because we just didn't have a lot of channels. The only channel I really watched was whatever Play School was on. So that was the only, like, TV show that I watched.
ABC.
Probably ABC of some
ABC
kind.
2.
Yeah.
Two at the time, who knows?
But, yeah, like, other than that, I just watched whatever was around the house, and one of them was, of all things, Gilligan's Island. Like, like the full series of Gilligan's Island. I would watch that all the time.
Was that like on TV, or did you have like how did you?
No, like we have. I don't know if we still have them, but at the time we had like DVDs of the full series.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, like, yeah, Ginger's what's up. Like, that was a big part of my like sexuality as a kid. I was like, women are attract Gingers. What's good? Like,
fair.
I feel DVD box sets is. I feel like that's a real missed art.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, definitely. No, my version of that was we had Bewitched. We had like a couple DVDs of that, so that was
Yeah, that tracks.
yeah, of just like that was my like 60s television show that we just had for some reason.
That had the weird animated intro, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
I never. Yeah, that's like stuck in my brain for some reason.
What was I gonna say? Oh, another because again, I think of a lot of stuff as like I wouldn't watch as much television at points. I just grabbed the DVDs we had and put them in.
Yeah.
So I also another which is again on the category of like shows that were not made for children, but I was a very young child and it was the DVD for, and there we go. I watched pretty much all of that 70s show as a kid.
Oh, what?
God, of course you did.
How young are you? Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's fine and normal that can ontologically have been true. Yeah, I believe you. That's fucked up.
And then when I was like 14, 15, I went through the first 4 seasons and went, yeah, I'm still enjoying this.
Yep, it's fine. Yeah, super fine that happened. Yeah, so this is where I thought this would be a really interesting discussion. Is like, okay, because part of the reason that I initially suggested this to you as a topic, Connor, is like, I think there's something specific about the era that we grew up in, and that, or that you guys, like, you know, like I was a little bit older, but like same kind of material era where a lot of, you know, there wasn't a way to get content on demand that wasn't extremely expensive or like completely limiting technologically, right? Like, you know, even at that time, like, so when I was growing up, and this is going to make me sound way older than I am, but when I was growing up, like, we didn't have pay TV, and the pay TV that did exist, you couldn't like record a show that you missed. You couldn't pay on demand on Foxtel to watch a film or something, right? Like, you sort of had to catch it in the moment. And so a lot of the way that we consume content was through VHS or DVD box sets specifically. And that was why I was interested to talk about it, because you guys aren't that much younger than me, but what really, I think, changed in that transitionary period, exactly what Connor's talking about, like, you know, as that 70s show wrapped up, is it became pretty quick and tidy to get shows other ways. So, like, DVD box sets initially were pretty expensive and hard to come by. Like, my dad owned... Actually, I might talk about this at the end, because you've written in your notes, we should talk about your favorite show and why, so I'm going to save that. But, you know, like, my dad owned all the X-Files DVDs for all of the episodes, right? So I've watched every episode of X-Files, like, 5 times, because there was nothing else to do. You know, it was like daytime TV on a Saturday, and you're like, I need to watch something. Watched a lot of Frasier, because we had some VHSs of Frasier. Like that's kind of like how it all sort of shook out. And I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know, in the age of it's gonna make me sound 1,000, but in the age of, like, you know, this on-demand streaming content, because you can watch anything, I think there's something lost in translation of like the best shows I consumed as a kid were ones that I became intimate with, not because necessarily of choice, but because of proximity. And I think that draws something different out of you as a kid. Like, the fact that you're like, I have to watch another episode of Frasier because there's nothing else to do. That's a really different experience than, like, I'm just gonna stop watching this. I've watched 3 episodes of this one show, and I'm gonna change to this other thing.
Yeah.
It forces you to engage with the content on, like, a different level. Does that make any sense, or am I just talking out my ass?
No, I get it.
I mean, although it did, like, I remember, I have a lot of memories of, like, my brother watching a show and me watching it with him, and, like, there's nothing else to do. I'm kind of hating this show, but there's nothing else to do, so I'm just gonna sit and watch it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So you're just like, yeah, that's not that fun.
But you don't think that's, like, good? Like, I think that's, like, okay for your brain to be like.
No, yeah, I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, like, I don't know. One of the things they drilled into me, like, during my masters was, like, you know, you have to, like, you have to, I don't know what the right word is, but, like, you have to subject yourself to stuff you don't enjoy in order to, like, not change how you think, but, like, it's just, like, generally a good thing to do sometimes. Like, I've been losing my mind the last 12 months because I've been watching every episode of Sherlock like an idiot. And that's, like, brain poison. But it's going to result in, like, a really good academic book that I've nearly finished.
It's fun watching, like, every video come out, man, like, you're a fool.
Oh, wait, say what you will about me deteriorating. I've just finished the edit on season 4, and Darth's deterioration is incredible. There's a season 4, episode 1, he legitimately, I broke him. Like, there's a point where he almost cries with how bad this show is.
No.
But, like, but I to circle back, I guess, like, did you guys find that as kids where, like, there was some value, or reflecting on it now, like, did you all have some value in kind of, like, stuff that you otherwise would have avoided, or, like, wasn't to your fancy, like, there was something to be gained from that?
For me, I'm like, I weirdly appreciate how I accidentally had so much range in my shows. Like, I've also on the list, like, obviously I've got, like, the earlier shows are like Girls Week 4, Popeye, Tom and Jerry, stuff like that. But then I also have stuff like He-Man and Transformers Gen 1. But, like,
Transformers.
But how did I access that? That's what I'm sitting here being like, how did I access He-Man?
Yeah.
What? We didn't have a VHS of it, but I have vivid memories of, like, watching He-Man and, like, knowing, like, not like a lot of like the outside of the stuff, but knowing of He-Man and Skeletor and their grand battle and like the theme song, and I'm like, no, I didn't properly go on the internet until like I was 12. Like, how could I have seen any of this? Like, I was definitely a child and this was on the TV, but where did it come from? I don't know. But I'm like, no, I vividly have this, like, not like this, yeah, I guess nostalgia for these shows. I'm like, it's crazy. I have, like, I could, like, out of every decade from, like, the 40s onwards, I could probably, I can name one animated show from each one to be like, no, I have nostalgia for that show.
That's too much. That's too much, dude.
I will, like, it got to a point where I was just like, a show will come up and I'm like, oh, I watched that one as a kid, and then my roommate would be like, how? That's impossible. You couldn't have.
I think part of this is like the Connor brain prism, though.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's impossible to know where a thought begins and an experience ends, and it's just like one like cyclical encyclopedia of like stuff that exists that's content.
That's the perfect fucking descriptor for you. Holy shit.
Because you'll be like, hey, this thing, like, 'cause if it's okay, for example, if I'm like, hey, oh my god, there was a show that happened in this time of this era, and as long as it's a cartoon, Connor's like, yeah, that was written by Frankie Smith, and that came out in like 1998, and you're like,
and I had this voice actor who also voiced Wacko and Animaniacs.
Like, he was this one famous guy, but he wasn't famous, and then he got cancelled. Like,
and then he went down in cocaine in like the 90s, you know, which is way too late for cocaine. But
yeah, like that's what I'm fucking talking about. Whereas I feel like for the rest of us, it's just like our brains are this like dull sludge where you have to kind of get this scoop out and be like, what happened more than 3 days ago?
You get like an ice cream scoop, you put it down, and be like, I vaguely remember Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah, whereas for you like kind of type it into the mainframe and it spits back out a bunch.
I'm sitting there being like, hey, do you guys remember like watching the Fairly Odd Parents Jimmy Neutron like 3 crossover specials they did? That I think that was called the Power Hour, and in which like I remember as a kid liking the third one the best and the first one the worst, but then actually watching it as an adult, I might know the first one's the best and the third one's the worst because there's actively a lot of reasons.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's exactly the type of shit I'm speaking to right there, yeah. Damo, as a slightly more regularly shaped brain person that isn't a fucking weird prism, what, like, y'all got something else from your childhood? Because I feel like we've banged on some cartoons a little bit. You got something else?
Oh my god. I mean, like, apart from like the very, frankly, very sparse amount of DVDs and VHS tapes we had, I basically just picked like a group of 10 TV shows, and then I never watched anything else other than those. I watched whatever was uploaded onto YouTube, which included things like the Pokemon Indigo League show and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Pokemon Indigo.
Like,
that would have been the original series, like the first 2 seasons.
Probably first 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, because the Pokemon Indigo League's the first 2 seasons, and then sorry, I'm doing the thing again.
No, this is actually really, because I need the context. Go on.
Yeah, so you have the Pokemon Indigo League, which is like Ash, Ketchum, he's in Pallet Town going to Kanto. Yeah, so based on like the Red and Blue. And then there's the Orange Islands arc, it's like maybe like 4 or 5 episodes, they get rid of Brock, they get in a new guy. I do that for a little bit. Then you have the Johto League, which is still Brock, Misty, and Ash. That's like Gold and Silver. Then they went to the Hoenn region, and then like it goes through all the games, and that's when they start swapping out like the rotating cast. So
we don't talk about this enough, but I feel like Pokemon supported a pervert as a main character for a long time.
Yeah,
that was his gimmick, right? Like I don't know. Think about Pokemon as a kid. My lasting memory is Brock being a giant creep.
Yeah, he kind of was.
All women.
Yeah.
You said there were like 10 shows you revisited. You got a list?
Oh god.
Do you have a ranked list?
Oh my god.
Ordered list? Are we BuzzFeed? What are we doing?
If you want, I can go to a different show. I've got plenty.
Oh god, if I'm trying to remember,
you wrote 10, I have so many more.
I don't know,
6,
dude.
Connor.
It was like a handful.
6.
Yeah, I'm not a monster like you.
I'm the monster under your bed being like, hey, do you remember Thank God You're Here? The Channel 7 show?
Yeah, I'm not a homunculi made up of like Australian television Wikipedia. Like,
Have you ever felt like this? The strange
Oh my
things happen.
God.
Oh my god! I haven't thought about that show in 1,000 years.
I own 2 box sets.
You got too
You
many.
can rewind the tape and hear me recognize that when you said it. That's crazy, bro. I haven't thought about that in so long.
That sure scared the shit out of me as a child.
Yeah.
It's terrifying and hideous.
Oh my
And
God.
I accidentally owned 2 box sets.
I don't think you've accidentally any
No,
media in
no,
your entire life.
no. There's a lot of intentional stuff, but a lot of accidental things.
I've
Like
seen the DVD shelf. I don't know who you think you're trying to fool.
some of the duplicates of accidents. Some were on purpose. Anyway, Damo, you're just thinking of shows.
Oh God. Folks.
Please talk about anything else.
So okay, yeah, one of the shows I watched the most, which is like, it was Kimber the White Lion. It was before I
Oh.
even knew what anime actually was, and I didn't think it was anime for some reason. I don't know. I watched that all the time. There was also, yeah, whenever it was on TV, like Bob the Builder, but like obviously the original one.
Yeah.
I
not
thought
the
you went
weird-
you went young thing. I'm like, I guess mine's all ages. But anyway, continue.
No, I'm thinking young. But also like Bananas in Pajamas, which also like is
Oh,
the same thing as
yeah,
Bob the Builder. It
classic.
got a CGI like remake
Redo,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
do you guys want my crazy bananas in pajamas story? I don't know how much you guys have.
I'm curious.
I
I'd
don't know how
love
much
to
I should-
hear
I
it.
don't know how much I should talk about this. So, fuck man. So the guy who wrote Bananas in Pajamas, whose name is for some reason escaping me. Oh my god, what's his fucking name? Anyway, he stayed with me as a kid, and we were super into, Del Toro Quest at the time, which is like an Emily Rodda series, which is written by Jenny Rowe. That was her pen name or whatever. And he basically was like, yo, she didn't write those. They're all ghostwritten. And so I have this bizarre video on our channel of
It's a
like
good video.
digging into the background of like just this insane conspiracy. And there's a follow-up that I haven't made yet where it basically like proved out to not be completely true, but also not be completely false. That'll come out in like 3.5 years, presumably, with our current production schedule. But
I know the feeling.
my experience with Bananas in Pajamas is I Richard Tulloch, there you go, that just came to me. Richard Tulloch was the guy that helped write the original books. He got screwed on all the television deals, so they cut him out of a bunch of money on the television deals and the cartoons and live action and stuff like that. And so it's famous in the Australian writing industry for like one of the seminal pieces of media that ended up with like, regulations and union laws around like how do writers get paid and how does that sort of stuff work. And it led me to this weird conspiracy about like Australia's biggest selling fantasy author, which is cool and not at all been damaging to my career, so it's fine. that happened. It's fine. Go on, Damo.
Afterwards.
It's
Damo
fine.
next
You
week.
may go on. Look, I've recovered most of the damage at this point. I had to email like some really famous people and be like, "So, are these books written by somebody else?" And of course, I'm not gonna name names, but of course, the person that's like runs one of the biggest fantasy publishing houses in Australia wrote me back, and no one else did. It was like I blank fired to like the most famous toppest honcho I could find, and he wrote back, and that's cool.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's cool and fine. Damn it, go on with the thing that you were saying, so we can not dwell on this for too much longer.
We're gonna hold me back. I already even talked about Garfield and Friends.
Oh God.
Jeez.
God, if I like, okay, I guess it wasn't a TV show specifically, but also just a ludicrous amount of like the Barbie movies from the 2000s as well.
What?
I had
There are Barbie movies?
Oh, there's a lot of Barbie movies. Yeah, there's so many of them. I don't have them
Oh my
anymore,
God,
unfortunately.
yeah.
But had
Holy
those.
shit.
I also had like
There's There's so many.
There's so many,
Oh
dude.
my god. Jesus
but like,
Christ.
also one of the other, was it a TV show? It must have been. But one of the ones I watched the most was also Bindi the Jungle Girl, which is
Oh,
yeah. Did you ever watch that?
I now remember it existing.
Yay! That was basically how I found out all my knowledge about like Steve Irwin and all that stuff. It was pretty cool.
Like, yeah,
It was
I
a
watched
pretty fun
Crocodile
show.
Hunter, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know the Crocodile Hunter existed at that age.
I had the movie, which is a weird. It's such a bizarre movie. We should watch it sometime. It'd be a time.
Yeah.
This is bizarre to learn about.
I think because, as much as I think at the very end I'll rattle off every show that I haven't mentioned on my list, but I think we should move on to our actual, second question of like, out of all the shows we would have watched when we were younger, what would have been like our favorite ones that we kind of
I know what it
stuck
is.
with?
I'm going to let you go, Damo. I'm going to step away for 2 seconds.
Okay. Fair. Definitely Kimber the White Lion, for sure.
Fair.
Yeah, because like I mean at the moment I have the DVD set of like the whole series. I got that years and years back, I think from a JB Hi-Fi, if I remember correctly. But before that I just had a bunch of like scattered, probably honestly not very legally acquired VHS tapes of random episodes, and that's how I consumed it. And it had an entirely different opening song and everything. It's on YouTube. I made a comment on that YouTube video, and it still gets replies every now and then. I made that comment when I was like 12 years old or something. But yeah. But of course, because like I was a kid and I watched the English dub, I am aware that dub, because you know it's a dub from like that era of anime. It's not a very well received dub. But I haven't watched it in years, so I do not remember how bad it actually is. I just remember as a kid listening to it and thinking, these people don't sound entirely real.
Just a good way to describe that. Like,
yeah. It's just like there's something not right about them, but like I still watched like the fuck out of it. And I mean, like, if I were to go into other Tezuka works in after school care, every now and then they would play, no, not every now and then, but one time I think one of the older kids there played an episode of Astro Boy. And yeah, and I wanted to get into it so bad, but I just didn't really have any reliable way of actually watching it. But I'm gonna find a way to watch it because I'm genuinely interested by it.
Astro Boy is another show on which I'm like, how did I watch this?
Yeah.
I know I did. I have memories of it, but where? How? Who had this?
Yeah. It specifically, I remember that clip so vividly. I remember like the TV up in the ceiling, and it's like in a nice little chill out corner for all the kids to sit. It was such a nice after school care place. But like,
clearly.
Yeah. But it was specifically a shot of like Astro Boy, I guess, like passed out on the ground, and like part of his body is opened up because, you know, he's a robot boy. And like I guess the other main characters are crowded around him, but that's all I remember from it. And I just remember thinking, this is so cool.
Yeah, no, look, fair.
Yeah, I need to find a way to watch it.
I'm gonna pass it on to David next, so that I don't also again
Yeah.
take over.
Look, look, fair. Sorry, I had to step away because it was raining, and it was raining into my apartment because I left the window open. So I solved that issue. We're talking about favorite.
Yeah, favorite shows.
That's right. Look, so as I said, I watched a lot of start the whole sentence again. I watched a lot of shows as a kid that were definitely not for kids. For me, thinking back to like the DVD box set style of consumption, for me, my favorite show as a kid was Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, fair enough.
A big part of it, I think, and like this won't be that surprising to anyone that has consumed my stuff before, but I think in general, like, absent my tendencies and the fact that I was born 45, One of the things I really like about it as like a conceit is, it shares some DNA with the, Flash Gordon style content. It shares some DNA with things like Doctor Who, where it's like every episode is ostensibly a one shot about something. So it's like, the Enterprise lands on a planet, deals with a problem, and moves on. More often than not, some weird entity comes into the ship and changes the dynamic, whatever it is. What I specifically enjoyed as a kid about Star Trek Next Generation is that it was a I don't know the right way to express this. It was like this, every episode had something to say about something. Like, whether it was small or big, whether the entire episode's point was about, like, what does it mean to forgive? Or what does it mean to have compassion? Or what does shame look like? Or why do we feel betrayed sometimes? It was always it's always one small idea, one kernel of an idea that an entire episode is kind of folded around. It has all this sci-fi trappings and this progression of the story as, people age and people come on and off the ship and all these kinds of things. And you have Wesley Crusher and his story as a protagonist. You have Picard and Riker and their relationship. But I think the reason that it really stuck with me is it became a way to safely explore and kind of learn like a bunch of lessons that I didn't really like think about as a kid. And it wasn't the kind of hokey, I don't know, I feel like a lot of kids shows, it's like you finish an episode and it's like, don't be a bully because bullying's bad. Star Trek Next Generation was a lot more like, hey, maybe there's like a institutional or structural reason why people feel the need to bully. And the answer to it is not as simple as don't do it. It's a really complex web of interlinking systems or interlinking emotions and things like that. And I guess the reason I really glommed onto it as a kid is like it never spoke down to its audience, and it had that specific feeling of shows as a kid where, my favorite shows as a kid were shows that were like, they felt adult even if they weren't necessarily, or they didn't feel like they were talking down to you. And Star Trek The Next Generation is like the ultimate not talking down to you show, where it takes itself, the characters take what's happening very seriously, even if the show doesn't. Like an episode where Picard is a weird old-timey noir detective in the holodeck is a goofy-ass concept, and the show knows it is, but the characters take it seriously. And I don't know, that was really important to me, because, like, I don't know, like, I had a lot of experiences as a kid where, like, people were just like, you're a fucking kid, whatever. And it was cool to have a show be like, hey, this is goofy, but it matters. And a lot of stuff I was doing was goofy, or it felt goofy, but it mattered, and like it's become my career now, and it's like stuff I do for a living. It was just like a cool, safe place to explore a bunch of like philosophical and ideologies and all this other stuff that like didn't exist elsewhere. And also, I still to this day think the costumes are funny as hell. Like, what a bizarre one-piece leotard they put, and like, but also, and this I'm just banging my fucking. This is just me preaching, but like. There are some hot people in that show for real, but like people who just look different kinds of ways are in all those kinds of, tight fitting clothes. And as like a larger kid, it was kind of cool to see someone like Riker be the sexy guy. He was like this barrel chested kind of stud. And it was kind of cool to see that represented. And like, especially at the time where like, Baywatch was wearing off and you had like the 90s version of hotness where it was all abs and stuff. It was cool to have Riker, who was like, not a particularly fit guy, but was still presented as attractive. And so there was a lot to the show that kind of, I don't know, like, it was fun, but I think looking back on it now, you can trace a lot of my morality and tendencies and political views and things like that, as arbitrary as it sounds, towards some of the stuff I learned from that. It definitely gave me tools at a young age that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Because it is a very careful and considerate show. And it's funny, and it's interesting, and it's goofy, and it's heartfelt, and yeah, it's not a kid's show, but like as a kid, it was really impactful and meaningful. There are some of my happiest memories of a kid as a kid, and this is less depressing than it sounds. Is summers on my dad's couch just watching like Star Trek episode after Star Trek episode, just like feeling like I was doing something worthwhile. Yeah.
I wish I had as much thought into mine.
Yeah, Connor's like, I like the one where they had the bigger explosion. That's my jam.
Like,
That's really nice.
it's that's
it
great.
just I don't know, like it meant a lot, and like I don't want to get too sentimental, but I mean it's
It's all good. You can. It's fine.
It was tricky because like at that time, like my relationship with my dad and like I had a really complicated childhood, and it was the sci-fi was kind of the thing that stitched us together in some sense. It sounds corny, but like our shared love of this medium that could do all these interesting things. Like we both really liked Star Trek and X-Files and Alien and Matrix and all these kinds of like these big kind of high-minded concepts. But the thing that I think made them really impactful was you didn't have to like if you watch a episode of Star Trek Next Gen, you don't have to quote unquote get the lesson to enjoy the episode. Sometimes you can just be like, oh, that was a cool episode where Data did a thing. But when it hits, and like different episodes will hit differently for different people, like most shows, your mileage is going to vary. When they do hit, it's like a some of them are like profound, like they're like profound on an elemental level, where it will call attention very succinctly to a thing you've never thought about like, oh, there's an episode that I've never forgotten where Data, who's the android, who can't die, he manufactures himself a kid called Lau, and he makes the kid based on his own neural network, and the Federation goes, hang on, you made a sentient life aboard a Federation vessel, we own that, it's property of the state. And Picard, the captain, who is famously loyal to the Federation, goes, absolutely not. Like, this is a sentient life form, you don't own it. And he is like the representation in the show up to that point, at least. This is like up to season 4, I think. He's the representation of the Federation. Like, he is the man, right? He's the captain. And he turns against the state and he says, you can't take this sentient being. That's not how this works. I'm not going to endorse you abducting a child from his father. And it's one of those episodes that has always stuck with me because it's so complicated in the themes it's exploring. Like, this kid is technically a replication of Data, which Data's not technically a sentient life form because... And, like, it's got all these, like, big inner workings and all these different kinds of things. But ultimately, the story is a tragedy because the way it ends is that the big thing Data has always wanted is to be human, right? He wants to... His whole pursuit in the entire series is he wants to be human. And his daughter, Lau, as she begins to die, she begins to decay for various reasons. She's finally able to fully feel love and loss and pain in a way that Data never can. But it's because she's dying. And it's this great Shakespearean level tragedy of like this guy who is doing everything he can to try and feel human, creates a life that is necessarily more human than he could ever be because it ends. And it's one of those like, it's one of those like I remember watching that when I was like 12 or something like that, and it stuck with me ever since. Like it's just like etched into my brain as like this, the very nature of life is this like kind of tragedy, and that's kind of obviously that's one could look through my literary history and trace its origins back to like that realization, but there are specific episodes or moments that just stick with you, and the rest of them kind of bake into like your understanding of people and society and like morality. And I think that's really special for a show that's a bunch of doofy guys in weird costumes banging about a green screen. Like, I don't know, it just it really affected me, and at a time when I probably needed something not challenging, but that was like, hey, maybe people are good and like life can be good, and maybe that's an exciting prospect, and maybe it can be good and bad and sad and happy and weird and confusing and all that stuff. And I really had a profound impact on me, possibly more so than the snippets of Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh that I consumed, I would say.
Maybe just a little.
Just a smidge.
Just a bit.
I did like when he did the Exodia, though. That was fun.
It's fun to go from this and to be like, yeah, I like The Simpsons.
Oh, I did watch The Simpsons as a kid.
Yeah, I was wondering why you never brought it up. I was like, I guess I got to bring it up.
I
Yeah, no,
forgot.
I grew up on The Simpsons. I was like, my parents never did that because I know a lot of like you hear stories like kids like, oh, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons when I was young.
I wasn't.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
I had to
nah,
sneak
my dad just had like, and this is a thing that we slowly got more episodes as like my dad would eventually be able to buy another box set of a season. So like we're slowly going through it as I'm getting exposed to like more and more Simpsons, and that is like a really big show to me. 'Cause I'm like, yeah, no, this is probably like my first proper like big long form show. The Simpsons is
Yeah, same.
so long.
It's huge, yeah.
So it's a thing of like I was watching episodes on Channel 10 when they were coming out, and then also all the classic episodes from the 90s.
Because they used to air them at like 6 p.m., right?
Yeah.
And it was after the 5:30 report, and it was before the whatever the news was they had after that, right? Yeah, I remember that. It's crazy how much difference 8 years makes. Because when I was growing up, like Simpsons was an adult show. Like kids couldn't watch it. It was like described as like being pornographic or something.
That's
not the right
right.
word.
No, I know what you mean.
Yes.
But it was like,
It's
that was when they were like video games are going to cause violence and Simpsons is going to rot your brain. Like it was, yeah.
Don't have a cow, man. Oh no, society's ruined.
The irony being the Simpsons is so fucking vanilla.
Yeah. Especially in comparison to shows now.
Listen, I've seen The Red Wedding, man. Let me tell you, there's some shit out there. But even at the time, like, you know, South Park was around and like, you know, even at the time it wasn't that salacious, but it was just the one that was in the news, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, especially because I guess it was because it was the most like public facing.
It was the most popular, for
Yeah,
sure.
well, definitely the most popular, and also because like South Park and like Family Guy, they came around like the back half of the 90s, where Simpsons was like 1990. So like Simpsons had at least like 6 to 7 seasons of The Simpsons before any season of like a Family Guy comes in.
It's
So
weird to
like,
think about.
so it is a thing of just like, yeah, but I grew up, I watched so much Simpsons. I mean, now like my dad was just like, oh, well, you take all the seasons of The Simpsons, have them all, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I just have 10 seasons, and then I'm like, now to go to buy them at JB. Oh, they got rid of every season. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can all agree
Okay.
that like season 3 and 4 are the best seasons, right? I don't think that's like a contentious opinion.
Hold on, I
I'd
remember
have
them by
to-
box color. Which colors are those?
Okay,
Oh my
season,
God.
season 3 is pink, and it's them falling off the couch as it's leaning backwards.
Oh, that's right.
And season 4 is dark blue, and it's like got Barney on the cover, and it's all like all crowding around the TV.
Just for the listener, Connor, did you do that by memory or are you looking at the box set?
Memory.
That's upsetting. That's worse, man. What is happening?
The box sets are in the other
Oh
room.
my god.
I was a child and looked at them a lot. I read all
Just
the
looked at
manuals
them?
and stuff. The manuals,
don't-
like I read all like the little like pamphlet things that would come with it, describe every episode plot, and also like the stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, cool, reading all that stuff. And
I skimmed
Yes,
those.
Yeah, I guess in the absence of everything we know about you, that's a plausible explanation. Yeah, sorry. Hang on. Fuck, I'm trying to like do some mental mathematics here. So were you watching? Because like the way that I consume Star Trek is like I watch like 3 episodes in a whack. That was like what was on a disc at the time. Makes me sound a million. I know discs can hold a lot more information, but like how are you consuming it? Like what was the how did it finish your life?
I'd probably be like, it'd either be like after school or like probably like after school, because my parents both worked. My grandparents lived with us, but like I just kind of at one point I eventually did get like a younger brother. He also was pretty independent pretty quickly, so I was like, cool. I was just alone a lot, so I just would put on whatever we had. And especially when I was younger, it would just be The Simpsons, because that was the one that I enjoyed the most, and like except for like a couple Treehouse of Horrors here and there, it wouldn't spook me because I was very much a scaredy cat.
You still are.
Oh yes, but I'm better at it now. I actively sat down I'm better in the...
Show your working, Connor.
I watched 42 I watched 42, I guess, Halloween-themed movies in October. Just in that month, I watched 42 films.
Why? That's
You
more than
watch
there.
too many.
That's more than there are.
Because I was never exposed to horror as a child, apart from the things that spooked me, which weren't really... Well, a bit of horror, like Gruesome Tales for Horrible Children, that show.
Yeah,
which I
that
hated.
ripped.
I
Yeah.
hated it because it scared the shit out of me, and like I actively still think of like one episode. I'm like, that was still bad, but it's just because I'm like, no, I do very much feel very gross around cannibalism. It does affect me, yeah.
You have once again breezed past our issue with the thing you said and thought it was something else, which is our issue was not that you didn't like scary things as a kid and now are able to handle them. It's that there are less than how many days are in
31.
So that's too many.
It's too
Like
many.
that's too many in 1 month. Like that's too many for a year.
Would you like
I
me
think
to quickly go? Oh, I watched like 140 that last year.
What is
God.
happening? I probably watched 15 films in the whole year.
I'm just
Like
could I quickly just like go just like name every movie I watched that month?
I would love you to, yeah. That
So
would be, that would be
rewatch,
excellent.
yeah, rewatch of The Nightmare on Elm Street. First watch of Fear Street 1994. Rewatch of Halloween. Rewatch of Scream 1. Poltergeist
Take
for
Sofa.
the first time. Hocus
Ooh.
Pocus. Monster Squad. The Lost Boys. Scooby-Doo Camp Scare. Scream 5. Werewolf by Night. Scooby-Doo Abracadabra Doo. The Evil Dead. Attack of the Block. Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness. Rewatch. And Evil Dead 2 rewatch. Scooby-Doo and Batman, The Brave and the Bold. An American Werewolf in London. Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. Event Horizon, Night of the Living Dead, Annihilation, Happy Death Day rewatch, Corpse Bride. Scooby-Doo Kiss, Rock and Roll Mystery. Society, The Ritual, Hocus Pocus 2, The Dark Crystal, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Ghostbusters rewatch, Ghostbusters 2 rewatch, but as a back-to-back thing, which I hadn't done ever. Scooby-Doo 2...
Ghostbusters 2, isn't it?
It's fine.
It's not good. Anyway,
It's
go on.
fine. Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Tigers Are Not Afraid, Happy Death Day to You, I Am Not a Serial Killer. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Videodrome, Wendell and Wild, Heathers, Over the Garden Wall rewatch, Heathers rewatch, Over the Garden Wall rewatch, and Donnie Darko rewatch.
So
I
you,
guess
you watched
a few-
Heathers twice within that?
Yeah.
No, as in like,
What?
when I say rewatch, as in like, these are films that, because majority of
seen
these films
previous.
were films I had never seen before. Because I wanted to get more exposure to the genre I've just never had much experience in, and I wanted to pick out the weird ones that I enjoy.
The way that you framed that was that you had exclusively watched horror during that month.
There are a couple ones
Did you
that
mention
are...
Over the Hedge?
I mentioned... no, over the... I mean, look at that animation quality. Ooh! No, I mentioned Over the Garden Wall.
Oh, sorry.
That
my
makes
bad.
more sense.
All
Um,
good.
that
Different
makes way more
vibes.
sense. Yeah, you were reading very quickly.
Fair
Annihilation is not a horror film.
It was something though. It was fun because I think I got the wrong reaction at the end of that movie because I went to that one. Could have been weirder.
Oh, that is a weird reaction.
I'm
to
like,
that, yeah.
this shouldn't be my reaction to this movie. I feel like this
You
is
should be
supposed
like,
to be.
yeah, you should be thinking about like what it means to be a person. You're like, it could have been weirder.
I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, that was great. That was a really good film. But yeah, it could have been a lot stranger.
One of the missteps we made pretty late into our like podcast career is we did a whole episode where it was sort of a bit, sort of not a bit, where we pretended, in inverted commas, to try and get to the bottom of what was happening at Annihilation, to prove that it was not about getting to the bottom of what was happening in Annihilation. Turns out a lot of people didn't get that's what we were doing and thought we were just big doofuses. We'll never do that again.
No, fair. It's one of those things of like, you're just like, this is a joke, and then cut to the episode.
Well, yeah, it's not a funny joke. It's just like a thing that's trying to illustrate something that. It's like in describing the text, you've just done the text again. You didn't really commentate on it. Do you have like favorite? Because my favorite Simpsons episodes are like by and large. I mean, like the big ones are, like the end of the Quickie Mart. That episode's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Who shot Mr. Burns?
Who shot Mr. Burns?
Oh, yeah.
I had the clue game of that one.
Fucking...
Yeah. The clue game that I grew up on
course
was
you did.
Simpsons
Of course you
Cluedo.
What does that even mean?
So it was
What do you-
Simpsons Cluedo, and you know how Cluedo works, right? Of like, someone's
Yes.
dead, we gotta work out who it is. The premise of this game was who shot Mr. Burns.
Were you written by Wes Anderson, Connor? Like, what is your life? Simpsons Cluedo. Oh my god, this is for real. I'm looking at it.
There's two versions as well. I tried to look up because our version's
do you know
beaten and
that?
battered. Because I wanted to see if I could get like a new like a buy up like a nicer copy because we're missing pieces because I was a child.
What a satisfactory answer to my question. Raises no further questions.
And then I learned there were two versions because they did like a kind of remake one
Oh, yeah, I
a
can
couple
see
years
that,
later. But
Oh,
no,
yeah.
like
Wait, are you confusing Cluedo and Clue? Because I'm seeing
they're the same thing. The Australia has it called Cluedo for some reason.
I think it was a branding issue. I think Clue was already taken by someone.
Yeah, probably.
Something to think about. Or maybe it was the other way around.
I'd have
Yeah,
to.
so Cluedo's the global name and Clue is the North American version. Oh, this is pretty fun. There's like the characters similar to Monopoly are like little cast iron critters, and I'm looking at a Homer Simpson.
Homer
who's got his
Simpson's Mr.
arms
Green,
crossed.
Bart's
Yeah.
Professor Plums,
It's fun.
Smithers is Mrs. White, who was the maid. Then you have Marge is Mrs. Peacock. Krusty was Colonel Mustard. Lisa was she was like the red one. I don't remember. Scarlet something, maybe.
How did you? Again, you just know that, don't you? That wasn't you didn't.
Yeah, no, this is just me coming off the top of my head.
So upsetting. Oh,
Your head scares me sometimes.
It's terrifying.
I should do the thing where the 11th Doctor just headbutt someone to give them all their information. I should do that.
I was
That might
thinking about this
that
the
might
other day.
kill someone.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
that would in this like incinerate
Hey, would you
anyone
like the
else's brain.
would you like the Wikipedia knowledge of all of like what's one of the shows I have here?
God.
For reference,
Batman the Brave and the Bold. What? Doof.
Yeah, that's what it's like. I retain a lot of stuff professionally. It's part of my job is to be like, I know about media. Like, my professional knowledge is probably like equivalent to some of my peers who like, you know, they've been doing this a long time. Connor, like, I don't know how else to explain this other than like, Connor is the person that like in any meeting of any writer's room where you're like, remember there was that episode of Neighbours where someone did X and Connor's like, that was actually not an episode. That was a 3-part episode in season 2, and it was in like.
And it was Home and
had
Away.
these- Yeah, like it's unbelievable. Like, because I have ridiculous recall for this stuff, but you make me look like I don't know anything about anything. Like it's insane to me.
Oh, don't worry. They do that to
Um,
everyone.
I'm aware they do. I'm more than used to it. It's just still impressive to me as like as a utility that exists. Because like you could say one word and then suddenly Connor's like, well, actually, and then suddenly like it feels like you open a booklet and it like folds out in front of you. Like you all remember like those old booklets where it was like you'd have a book and you'd open it and like the page would fold out vertically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a pamphlet. Yeah, it feels like that's everything I ever say to Connor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, here's my pamphlet about that."
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that Scoob movie was really weird. I know, because I did a lot of references to wacky races. You're like,
exactly
oh god.
right, yeah. Like that was a passing comment. I wasn't trying to dwell on.
And then they did like a Tom and Jerry parody movie of wacky races, and you're like, well, this isn't relevant to the conversation. We're talking about cheese graters. What happened?
Were there any like? This is going to be a contentious question. Were there any like? And I don't want to get too rowdy because this is supposed to be chill late night. But like, were there any TV shows that you all had as kids that you really didn't like?
Peppa
a lot
Pig.
of Disney Channel shit.
I remember Peppa Pig came on TV like once. I did not like it at all.
You didn't like that British pig? That wasn't for you?
No, I hated it. Something about it
Um,
as a kid, I was just like, this isn't a good show. I don't want to watch it.
If I was a young child, it'd probably be something that would spook me. If we're going for young audience, like in that Peppa Pig, like maybe like younger than that, like Teletubbies stuff. Boobar is a show I recommend looking up. It's BOOH.
Oh my
AH. It's
Oh,
terrifying. It
it's that
scared me. It's that one. I want to do a video, like I want to put
Oh, we
people
gotta
in
do
the
something on
experience of like,
It's so weird.
can someone watch this and understand my existential terror as a child watching this? Because
It's so bizarre.
it is genuinely haunting in so
The-
many levels that I cannot explain without showing you the show, but I don't want anyone to watch it until we're sitting down and being like, watch this.
We have to make some concept because so the thing that's upsetting about the Teletubbies is that what they're doing is so inane, and you're like, this is nothing. It's clearly for kids.
Mm.
Boobar is like there isn't enough weed on the planet to make it make sense. Like it is.
So
It
Boobar is a show
just-
created by the people who did Teletubbies. It was
I heard
aimed at
that.
like it was what it was it's
Are they
it's
shooting
an
younger?
exercise show. I think I'm from
What?
mem- it's an,
What are you
like okay, so there's
saying out loud
there's
to
two
me?
sides of the show, right? I looked at the Wikipedia article recently because I had to explain it to my partner. 'Cause they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Okay, this is a bizarre thing that I know about." So
Need glimpse
there's
into Connor's day to day.
there's two sides of the. If you want a glimpse as to what a conversation I actually had with my partner recently,
Yeah, go
So,
on. I'm not worried about
um,
us or them or anyone else.
there's two sides of the show. There's two things. So the one side is following the Boobars, which
That's
is
the
like the
narrative.
weird alien creatures, and now they are supposed to represent like. Hold on, just to get it right, I need to bring up the Wikipedia for this. Because that's where I was reading it up before.
Oh,
just
this
like
is where the knowledge ends? Because it feels like everything
no,
else you've
no,
had
I
unlocked-
just want to say it right. I just want to be like, okay, this is like, to not like say something and then just be objectively wrong. If you could
Oh
just
my
do like
God.
a 3-minute Google.
This is legitimately a exercise show. I'm looking at it. I didn't realize. The
Yeah.
fuck?
So as the Wikipedia states, Booba is a British preschool television series created by Arnwood, who did as we get into, they did Teletubbies. According to Anne Wood, the show's visuals were inspired by scientific photographs of microscopic life and cell structures. The main characters of the Boobars are atoms of energy who sleep in charging pods.
Oh.
Every episode follows the Boobars performing a dance routine in which the audience is encouraged to participate. The creators of Ragdoll Productions designed the show to be an interactive televisual game to emphasis on the spiritual awareness, motor skills development, and puzzle solving.
Right.
Episodes of Boobar are divided into two main segments, one's featuring the Boobars, another featuring the story people. So obviously the Boobars...
Story people are the teens they paid to do
No,
junk work
no,
or
it's
whatever.
worse. Story people
What?
are silent human characters whose actions are controlled by off-screen children using the magic word Boobar. Every episode of Boobar includes a segment in which the story people are magically given a present. The Los Angeles Times called these segments comic visual puzzles executed with the a vaudeville fare. So you got Grandmama, Grandpapa, Mrs. Lady, Mr. Man, Brother, Auntie, and Little Dog Fido. Those were the characters. So it wasn't like teens, it was
Oh, no, I'm
adults.
seeing it. There's like an old ass man and an old ass woman.
And you know how like with stuff like Dora the Explorer when it's like can you say this word, and then clearly you're meant to fill in the blanks. It was so much worse. It was so much more silent, and it would just show like because it was done by the people who did Teletubbies. You know those shots that it's just like a background and then like a thing slowly happening into frame, or like how those like if you look at those like out of like you just like what is happening.
Yeah, we're gonna
What is
paste
this?
just a timestamp URL in the chat if you want to just quickly.
I'm
Hit-
not because I'm going to watch it for the first
This is
time
more
again
for demo,
in person.
but
Yeah,
we gotta make something about it because this is like an existential horror.
that's what I mean.
Situation.
I need to do something with this. It's been sitting
is
in my brain
something.
for years.
There's the end of this like kind of 30-second clip is they're jumping jump rope, all of them together, and then when they successfully jump the jump rope, they all at the same time lay on their backs so they jump rope too quickly and they fail. Then all at the same time they lay on their backs such that their feet are in the air at the same time. There's like all of these characters who are kicking their feet in the air and laughing. Like, this is truly bizarre. Like, I don't know what to make of this.
Clearly, it did not last as long as Teletubbies.
Why?
Um,
Though, why not? Because there's for sure some content in this well that we can mine.
we
but,
can. I definitely have to do an episode on this.
I just want to
truly
bring up
bizarre.
real quick that the only reason I even know about this show is because at one point, I don't even remember when, I used the word booba to describe like boobs, and then what happened was I
had
got
a
a full
flashback.
you had a flashback and I got a full explanation onto this fucking bizarre show apparently also called booba, and now I can't even say the word booba around you.
Ruining lives since 2016.
This is why I don't use this is why I use only conventional words around Connor for safety.
It's a safety net.
Yeah, I can't be describing content. I just have to be very literal.
Because I will spawn off into a very bizarre joke or just a "Did you know? Here's a thing that
it's the
existed," and
Wikipedia
you're like,
article.
I could have lived my whole life without knowing
Without
about
knowing
this.
You know what I fucking hated as a kid? And I came at that very hard. I apologize. It's supposed to be late night chill energy. I apologize. But it just came to me. What was the show? What was the show where the Wild Thornberries? That was the show.
That's on
the
my list.
Thornberries, yeah.
That show drove me fucking mental because this is such a weird issue to have. I don't know what's going on in my brain, but because you were talking about Boobar and then you were saying that spending time with Connor is challenging, and I was like, what was challenging as a kid? And the thing, you know what I'm saying?
Me.
The thing. Yeah, I was also difficult. I'm a difficult adult, so nothing's changed. The thing that drove me crazy about that show is like her specific, like the thing that made her special is that she just wasn't an imperialist prick. Because like that was her dad, or like the whole like Nigel, like the whole issue with the family was like they just didn't understand that like nature's supposed to be, you're supposed to live alongside it, not conquer it or whatever. And like that was her entire specialness, is just like she wasn't the worst. And I don't remember any other show that was like that, where the lesson was like just don't be the worst. Like am I sound insane right now? I vividly remember thinking that as a kid.
Here's the thing. For me, the Wild Thornberries was I watched a lot of 90s Nickelodeon when I was a child. I have no memory of a lot of it. So I must have been very young. But
This is the part of the show like Connor digs me for being old. Go on. Yeah, actually, I didn't watch a lot of 90s Nickelodeon like you did, you old fuck.
No, it was just a thing where I remember was like, oh, okay, I know this show. Like, I know I know this show, and my parents were like, yeah, you watched a lot of that as a child. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. I had the DVD of the movie of the Wild Thornberries, and I do not remember much. The monkey went to school for some reason because they sent the protagonist away to like a boarding school, and the monkey to maybe not break her out, but to like talk some reason into something. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was like very young.
See, I didn't have that, but I had the Rugrats like crossover with the Wild Thornberries, which I was
what?
Yeah, it was like Rugrats Go Wild.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I had a full VHS tape of it.
This. Rugrats Go Wild. I'm looking at it now. It's 2003.
It sure did exist.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I had a bunch of Rugrats movies.
The reason I don't remember this is I was obviously too young to remember, not the other way around. This is definitely what happened, for sure. This is crazy. I can't believe they had a fucking crossover, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
At one point, I think we'll do an episode just on crossovers. Maybe.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I think, like, it's a thing of, like, no, there's a lot of fun crossovers to be had, and you'd have to sit down and be like, okay. And I'd even... You could almost include, like, the Doctor Who, like, Doctor episodes, where you just have, like, the multiple Doctor specials, because I'm like, that's almost...
not a crossover, that's just Stephen Moffat being up its own ass.
I was like, yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if I would count that.
I could finally devolve all my knowledge about the Timmy Turner, Jimmy Neutron.
Oh my god, I wish you would.
Crossovers.
I don't want to know about it.
I guess I'll be doing that episode with just me. Or you guys there'll be 2 episodes, you guys chatting, and I'm also in the VC, but you've muted me. And I can't hear you. So...
Me and Deb are gonna chill for an hour and talk about stuff, and then it's just you for an hour and a half.
I'm gonna have my own little moment of just chatting for too long, being like, I have a mouth and can only scream.
I mean, obviously, the only worthwhile crossover of all time is Frasier as a spinner from Cheers, so it's the only good one that's happened. You ever think about? I guess you guys wouldn't, but you ever think about Cheers?
Yes.
Like the whole concept of Cheers is like it's just a bar. It's just a bar, and like at some point. Someone walked into like an executive's office at a network and said, I have an idea for a sitcom. It's just a bunch of people in a bar. And it's not very funny, but it's not very interesting, but it's a bar. And then several decades later, the Always Sunny in Philadelphia guys were like, what if we did the same thing, but it was interesting and funny? But in between that, Frasier happened, which is one of the greatest television shows that exists.
It is one of the Frasier's one of the shows where no, you were on my list of I should actually probably sit down and try and watch this.
It's so weird to think that Frasier is a spin-off of fucking Cheers, because like
Oh,
Frasier
it's crazy.
It's so weird and like interesting and like it need not exist. Okay, Cheers is not great. Frasier need not exist, but the fact that it does and is so interesting and compelling it's bizarre. And I don't know, like I feel like the late 90s, early 2000s was such an era of just, hey, do you have a bunch of money and an idea? Do it. And like that's how you get things like Smallville, and like you got all these shows that just like have no right to exist, but the fact that they do is incredible.
Like again the and I'm gonna pull on me. Yeah, like the MTV CGI Spider-Man show from 2003 that only lasted one season.
What are you talking about?
It's
just happened?
It feels like something you've mentioned before.
I've mentioned it to you before, that we talk Spider-Man every so
my
often.
god.
So there was a CGI 2003. It's vaguely a sequel to the Sam Raimi 2002 Spider-Man movie, but like not canon to any of that, because obviously like Spider-Man 2 and 3 happened, but also just like it's so strangely placed. It only lasted a season because MTV kept trying to do animation and then canceling it after like a season.
To be fair, these characters are clearly modeled after the actors. That's the weird part. Like
it's apparently
I didn't know this existed.
I own it because it was, you could buy it at JB Hi-Fi. It's weird, but like apparently it's not bad. It's kind of good. Like if you could, like the animations, it was 2003, but if you could get past that a bit, there's kind of some good stuff here.
It's
I don't know what to make of that
to look
sentence.
At.
It's so weird looking at it now.
I'll do a TV retrospective on it at some point. I have the whole show.
You know what it looks like? It looks like that Linkin Park. What's the fucking Linkin Park video clip that's like all fucking anime? That's not Numb. It's like, is it In the End?
Oh my god.
It's got the same aesthetic, like that era.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
If I get like animated video clip, what's it called? Oh, Breaking the Habit. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's got that same aesthetic, like that same like. A lot of it's like forced perspective and like trick zooms and stuff.
Yeah.
Damn, that's something to think about.
It looks like a late PS2 game, honestly.
Like legit.
It's fun that I haven't even mentioned, like, it's like, okay, but my number one show, I was going to offhandedly mention The Simpsons, but like,
oh my
God. The
God.
Simpsons is a whole another episode on its own.
Yeah.
Like, that's also really
yeah,
good.
I guess so. We should, that's like a whole different.
But yeah, my number one show would be Gravity Falls. If I was like a kid, but also, that's like the back of I was like probably 12, I would have discovered it. But like, it again, talking about like, because this is my number one favorite show ever. Like, I deeply love Gravity Falls because it has such a personal connection to me of like, my favorite things I tend to discover at the weirdest points. So for another example, Back to the Future, the first thing I ever saw of it was when I was like 5 years old, passing by like the TV and they were airing Back to the Future 2, and it was the back end of the movie. So all child me saw, I just looked over the TV, was Doc celebrating that he sent Marty to the future, and Marty coming sprinting around the corner being like, no, I'm back. It's like, but I just said, no, I'm back from the future. And then him fainting and it saying to be continued. And me as a child was like, what is this? I must see it. And then going to my dad being like, we have to go to Blockbuster. My dad's like, we already own the trilogy. It's a good set of movies. And then that has now become my favorite. Well, the first Back to the Future's become like one of my favorite movies. And now Gravity Falls, I discovered it in a very similar way of walking by the TV, and it was halfway through the second last episode of season 1.
Oh my god.
Which is the episode with Bill Cipher in it for the first time, which is a dream demon. So they're in the mind of like one character, and like trying to find out like secrets about like this character as like it's been building up over the course of the season. But I'm sitting there halfway through being like, what is any of this? What is happening? And then I'm like, and then it ended on a cliffhanger because it was leading up to the finale, and I'm like, I gotta learn more about this. I just have to know more. And luckily it was airing a lot of episodes at the time, so I was able to glimpse the entirety of like the first season from television. And I mean, I own I own 2 box sets of the series. One DVD, one Blu-ray, and then I have it's a thing I really like. My favorite things tend to be weird, and it's because of situations in which I'm like, life can be life can be good, life can be bad, but it'll always be weird. Something bizarre will get thrown at you and you'll have no idea how to handle it, and that is kind of a beautiful thing that life has to offer. Is you would just be like, this is a very strange situation that ever happened to me in my life, but I'm just going to run with it because this is bizarre. And Gravity Falls being just this like weird show, which also had a lot of like long-running mysteries and like clues and like ciphers and like backwards messaging and like really trying to get you invested in like this type of thing. Because I mean, it was vaguely inspired by Alex Hirsch's like summer growing up and having boring summers and a bit of Twin Peaks. So it has like a lot of like interesting, and it is got like fun things of like, what was it, like the episode, like they got like good simple jokes of like Seuss just being a like one of the characters, Seuss. Sorry, I'm having a really difficult time to explain this because we're an hour and a half into this recording, and I am sitting here with so much energy but also tired. Being like, how do I explain Gravity Falls? Just being like, no, it's just a really good show about like 2 kids solving in a weird place on like their summer with like their con artist of an uncle who Alex Hirsch designed, being like, Disney's not going to pick up this show with this character in it. And then having like really simple but dumb jokes of like, again, the con artist uncle being like in the first episode being like, behold, it's a rock that looks like a face, and then the crowd he has been like, is it a face? No, it's a rock. But does it look like a rock? No, it's a face. And then cutting away to something else and cutting back, and then Stan just like, no, look, it's a rock that looks like a face. And just, you got that, then you have Seuss like with all his just varieties of quotes in which it's just like Seuss trying to like understand like to try and like dating or meeting people, and just coming out of like, because he's just dumb and he's adorable, and just like coming out of like the circle of clothes thing where like, you're a girl, I'm a Seuss, huh? And her running, or what was it? What's another like classic Gravity Falls bit I could do? Again, this show has been ingrained into my head. I have watched the audio commentary of every episode more times than I've seen the show.
Oh my god.
I love this show so much. It means a lot
You do
to me,
indeed.
and it is very, very good, and is one of the things that gets me into a lot of weird, like, it's like, no, weirds can be interesting and have a lot of variety and bizarre things. And also, it was one of the first shows to properly be like, we're a cartoon on like just a big network, but let's try and like make a proper serialized thing.
I think that's like a difficult risk. Like, I mean, like, you know, knowing Hush's background and stuff, like, I'm not surprised how successful. Well, it's easy in retrospect to be like, I'm not surprised it was successful, but like, that's like, that was tricky to do. Like networks and cartoons, like they wanted to be. They wanted to be friends. Like, they wanted to be, like, one-off sitcoms. Like, it was really hard to do something serialized.
Like, how they were able to get away with, like, the first chunk was Disney was like, okay, you have, like, the first 7 episodes to work on, and then, like, you work on all those, and, like, we'll get them all done. And once those 7 episodes are kind of done, then we'll start, like, airing, like, getting the show to get ready to air, and then you can work on the rest of the episodes. So they could kind of jumble around the order of which episode goes where, and they could have hints like, okay, we have an episode in which they do time travel stuff, in which they have a character called Blandon Blandon, who's voiced by Justin Roiland. But before Justin Roiland was in every cartoon, well, but it was that episode aired after Justin Roiland was in a lot of cartoons like Adventure Time and stuff like that. But Alex Hirsch grabbed him before he did any of those.
We've talked about this before in cartoons. Like, I mean, Ben 10 did that a lot. But like to the point where when we did our season review,
Yeah.
it was like my DVD box set had a different order than yours did.
Yeah,
Like-
and
And it was just a very particular era of like they just didn't, the continuity wasn't important, and like I don't know, the fact that they're able to do both, they have it, like the show has it both ways.
yeah,
where it
and they
can
were
do-
like
yeah.
able to get, because like especially now when you get a lot more serialized shows, you can't have that. But somehow Gravity Falls is able to just get away with it being enough, like episodic things, but then having those teasers at the end of things. And season 2 definitely ramps up in its like serialized nature, but they are they are very episodic episodes. We like, because of the time travel thing, at the end of the episode, Blendon has to go back in time and to the previous episodes and pick up things they left behind. And then if you go back to this old episode, you can point them out in the background.
You know what it feels like to me, and like, so there are 2 points of comparison that it draws to mind pretty readily, which is like, and you know, Homestuck is obviously like the biggest one that sticks out on my mind, is like that ability to be like, no, I'm gonna retroactively do this, or I'm gonna flip the chronology. That feels pretty readily available as like a device. This is, you know, it's playing in the same space. This is gonna sound insane to say out loud, but also structurally it shares a lot of similarities with something like Mad Men and Prestige TV of the time, where the idea is like you can tune into an episode and have a really rewarding experience, not quite knowing the fuller context, and you can watch them in different orders, but you still get the context of the episode. Watching them together in full context, you get a lot more out of it, but they still kind of work by themselves in kind of a weird way. And I realized that like someone just like had an aneurysm when I compared this to Mad Men, but like I think there's like a lot of similar DNA here.
I mean, I'm up for calling Gravity Falls Prestige TV. I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think it's drawing on a lot of the same like structural mechanisms, the same storytelling mechanisms. Yeah, like I don't know, it's just like an interesting point of time. Like it was that era of TV. Like, I don't know, you think about like 2012, 2011, it's like when this was being conceptualized, that was when this stuff was like blowing up. Like The Sopranos were wrapping up, you had like Breaking Bad becoming a thing, Mad Men being really, like, I don't know, like it makes sense that this is the product of that.
And then you get like in the animations like sphere as well, you get like Adventure Time happening, and I'm like, wait, we've made it silly and goofy, but we can actually kind of make this a bit serialized if we have, like, it's a lot of episodic, but like we can tell a story with this, and then eventually evolving into this massive giant, like, again, I haven't seen the finale, so I don't quite know, but like this bigger story, it's bigger, like,
Right.
not quite
Well, 'cause
overarching,
wasn't
but like,
yeah, I might be wrong about this, but like, wasn't Hirsch? Didn't he work with Pendleton Ward a bit? I think before this, maybe. Or I might be wrong
yeah.
about that.
So so everyone worked on Flapjack. The Marvelous Midget's Adventures of Flapjack.
That's
everyone
right.
worked
Yeah,
on.
yeah, that's right.
Like
I
you got
remember
stuff like
that.
you get like Pendleton. The Pendleton Ward. You got Rebecca Sugar, I think. She definitely worked in Adventure Time. Then you have, again, Alex Hirsch is there. J.Q. Quintel, who did regular show, he was in Flapjack. There's a ton of people in
It was like
Flapjack.
everybody.
I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, to the point where, like, again, when Alex is doing Gravity Falls, he got the guy who made Flapjack to play Little Gideon, who was one of the major antagonists in the show.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it's
That's right.
and like it's because like there's a couple shows, like if you look, especially in like a lot of different spheres, you go back, you're like, okay, this is a pinnacle show that spawned off so much. Like Flapjack as
Yeah.
a show itself is fine. It's from memory, it's like, it's not bad. It was a strange show, but hey, it did stuff, and then it spawned into just everything. It's like, that's crazy. And then Gravity
Yeah.
Falls is starting to become that as well, with stuff like Amphibia and Owl House and Inside Job, like all kind of like that team all coming from Gravity Falls.
I think it's like the animation. It's like, or I'm gonna use the word cartoon here, not derogatorily, but to separate it from like animation. It's like the cartoon equivalent of like Freaks and Geeks or something. Where like you look back on that, you're like all of these famous actors and producers and like Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen and Dave Franco and James Franco, like all these people started there, right? Like you can kind of look back to these synchronicity points almost where like things started. I think the thing that is always interesting about Hirsch's work specifically is the show feels like it has a thing it's trying to do and like has an ending in mind.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's really unique for the time. And I don't mean this like, not to dig on Pendleton Ward too much, but like clearly Cartoon Network or like whoever was funding that show were like, here is $1 billion to keep making Adventure Time forever. And they had to do the kind of maneuver of like, how do I end this thing?
I mean, like, it was a funny thing because they ended Adventure Time and then were given a bunch more money and then did like a new season.
Well, that's what I've been working on a video essay about The Walking Dead for like 3 years, not even being facetious. It's 7 hours at this point. It's getting long.
God. Wow. I'll watch it.
But like,
sounds right up my alley.
I may never watch it again after it's done.
Reasonable.
But oh god. But like one of the things like I've learned from that is like they finished the Walking Dead show and the network said, hey, to the actors and a few of the producers, do you want to just do like a bunch of spin-off shows for a ton of money? And they just were like, yeah, like it's like the acting equivalent of like flipping burgers or whatever. Like it's not particularly rewarding, it's not particularly interesting, but it pays the bills. And there's something about the way that like, I don't know, Hirsch approaches the project as a guy who's like, I have an idea that I want to do. And I remember one of the stipulations, I could be misquoting, so do forgive me if I get this wrong. But like one of his stipulations for doing season 2 was like, it's done after that. He was like, that's it. Like that's the story I have to tell. I'm out. And that's pretty cool. Like I don't think you get away with that these days. I feel like they'd say, yeah, no worries, dude. And then you turn around in a year's time, they've hired some other schmuck to reboot it or to do a spin-off. Like
to add to that quote, so because I know listening to every audio commentary, I know the broader context of it was also I'll explain another person who's coming off of that because they're also doing waves and what's coming up in like animation and stuff. But so the three people who were like they did season 1 and it was Alex Hirsch who was like the main Alex was like obviously created the show, one of the main people, Mike Rianda who we now know who is now spawned off to do who did Mitchell's vs. the Machines. They were director of that film. Oh, yeah. And apparently from I maybe double check, I don't know. Apparently he's directing the new Ninja Turtles movie that's Seth Rogen produced. Which is coming out this year supposedly. Which is Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And I'm like, I am intrigued. That's a brand new, like, it's like, yep, we're doing a new Turtles, new story, or whatever. I'm like, oh, cool, awesome. New movie franchise, nice. But it's like, no, cool, that's interesting. But yeah, so after season 1, Mike Miranda left. He's like, no, this is too much stress. And the other person I had on there, I can't remember his name, but he's the person who made My Life as a Teenage Robot.
Oh god, yeah. Okay.
They also got a couple Simpsons writers in the team.
Huh.
Right.
Which was fun because like they'll be having a thing because The Simpsons is obviously a big like they're like, no, we love The Simpsons, but it's like they'll look at a joke being like, that's a bit too Simpsons-y, and it's like, wait, no, the person who wrote this did actually write on The Simpsons. So that's fine.
That's weird to think about.
Yeah, but so like they but yeah, so that was the team, and then it was just the guy who did My Life as a Teenage Robot and Alex Hirsch being like, okay, it's just us, we don't have Mike Miranda for season 2. I don't think I could do another season after season 2. Like they were like we're thinking about they already intended to end the story. They were like, we're only doing a short series, like we're not doing forever onwards of because the premise being, well, summer ends, so the story will end. And it's like they were thinking like maybe 3 seasons, and they're like at the beginning of season 2 they're like okay, no, this is the last season. Last season we're doing it. Disney was like, we're happy to do more, and they're like, no, we're not doing more. We're ending it at this. There were
that's like kind of tricky though. Like
it's especially with Disney. Sticking up to the big mouse. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but Disney back then. You gotta remember, like it was a different landscape. Yeah, I know.
That's true. But
they weren't one of the 3 companies that exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
But the stuff that has come out afterwards of Alex Hirsch being like, now that I'm never working with Disney again, here's all the notes they gave me of what I couldn't have in my show. And it's a crazy video. It's like a 4-minute video I uploaded to Twitter of just like text of him like narrating it, of reading out his email, like genuine real emails he got. So they had like on like a flyer, for example, it says like it's like a flyer for like a teen party, and it says spin the bottle will like might happen or whatever. And then they're like, oh, you can't have spin the bottle as a reference. And it's like, okay. Well, what if we wrote it like this? Like S and B will have like it's like S plus S plus B. It's like no. I forgot the name of like the organization who what's the name? Like the organization, like the people who go through and do those checks of like, no, you can't have this in this type of show.
Essence.
No, you can't have this under the It's like it might have been S and B or something. It probably could be something like that. But like on S&P, I think it was. And then now on the flyer it said like S&P not approved.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, you can't say that, and he's just like, why? And they're like, S&P approves of not S&P approved. But I do recommend trying to find that that tweet from whenever that was. I think it was last year, because it was like the 10-year anniversary of like from when the show started.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, there was a lot of fight in that show, and like especially with the era and like interesting bits of like, yeah, no, very early on we realized that these two characters were gay. They're side characters, but like we could only make them kiss in the finale. They really did not want us to do much. Which is then you get like the vague nice thing of like, but then we got Our House, which is very queer of a show and it's very good. But then it was also cancelled for not being a part of the Disney brand. And then Disney realized there was a big fan community being like, why did you cancel this? And then, I mean, look, the guy who was running Disney recently, who was just like, oh, animation's for kids, he was fired and they brought Bob Iger back. So
that's not a good thing though. Dude sucks.
It's a thing of just like it's one of those things. Remember that happening in the animation community, just sitting there being like, everything's on fire, and it looks like.
Look,
have you seen Warner Brothers? It's like I guess this is better, but I don't know if it's like.
Yeah, it's better, but it's not good.
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, it's better, but oh god.
Yeah, but that feels like that's like a depressing state of affairs in general. That like, a heuristic for like change is not that things are good; it's that they're marginally better than they were. And that kind of like, I don't know, like I just think like artistically it kind of sucks to like. It's a challenging industry to be in at the moment.
We've weirdly had like just little quiet bits of like, oh, that's like kind of in. Again, my theory is that we're gonna have another Don Bluth situation. Is a bunch of people just gonna be like, fuck this, fuck you, and leave and start their own shit.
Yeah, but I don't know.
But also because it's like three big companies, like.
That's what I hope that's still viable, but I don't know if it isn't. Like it used to be.
Yeah,
like it used to be an option. Like, but I don't know.
Funnily enough, that's how the '80s started off. Was like in their moviescape was just like a bunch of small companies just made a ton of movies, and then eventually they were like bought out into bigger companies, and then we got the '80s caused a lot of issues for everyone.
Yeah, like, I guess the difference now, it's like you can do that, and it's like they did that, and the reason it worked is like it had a groundswell, and like there was enough of a distribution of like discourse, and trying to think of a succinct way to say this, but like you could do stuff independently and it could be successful. I think the challenge that we have now is like the flattening of discourse means that a very successful indie film by a bunch of folks, or a successful indie cartoon by a bunch of folks, is viewed with the same quality and value as something that has the same amount of views, which might be some guy doing like a TikTok dance or something. And so I think at least at the time, and like as like culture has grown and changed, you know, there was this heuristic of like, yeah, these things have like inherent value, or like they add to the culture. Whereas I feel like now, like we're in this position where having this content be out there that is, people understand there's a difference between like a Pixar film and a funny TikTok dance, right? People understand that inherently, but machines and algorithms don't. They go, well, did it have engagement? Did it have this? Did it generate this kind of revenue? And so we're in this interesting position now where what you're describing, Connor, is theoretically possible. Where like, yes, this could happen again, but the mechanisms by which merit is assessed is no longer, is art good or whatever, like whatever complicated question you want to ask about like art and like film and like how do things affect people or whatever. It's now just like, did it get enough views to sell enough ads for a different thing, or did it make enough money to justify its budget for a bunch of boardroom people? And like I think it's just like a really different landscape. And like, I remain optimistic. Like, I run an indie publishing brand. Like, I remain optimistic. I think we should keep fighting for it. But like, it feels like there is less possibility. Ironically, given that tools are cheaper than ever, access is cheaper than ever to make cool stuff that's different and interesting, it feels like the possibility of that stuff being the right kind of successful is less possible than ever.
That, and also just the fact that there's so much stuff. Like, yes, everything is easily accessible and you can make stuff. But then also, does anyone else remember the, I think it was Screen Australia did it. It was a 6-part animated superhero show that took place in Australia. And it was very seriously done of like, okay, it's talking about like the genuine. It was like, oh, okay, cool. That was uploaded to YouTube. It was called like, I don't remember what it was named. It was like Project Zero or something. It was an Australian-made superhero type show. Had 6 episodes. I remember when it came out, I watched all of it and went, no, this is quite interesting. And it is just forgotten by everyone. Probably also by Screen Australia.
Yeah.
But like, it's a thing of like, when you were talking about that, it's been like, yeah, this is a show that existed. It wasn't particularly anything like stroke of amazing, but I was like, no, this is something interesting. You don't often get to see what this is.
Right.
But I guess on any positive note, like, Bluey came out of Queensland. That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that obviously did, like, that obviously, it hit the algorithms and, like, it's come into such a world success, which is crazy.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to come across as too particularly
No,
negative.
it's
I
all
just
good.
think, like, if I had a takeaway thought to this whole discussion, which let me try and do the magic trick of wrapping it all together. I think, like, can I do this? I don't know. It's pretty late. One of the things about consuming TV shows as a kid that is really exciting is the possibility of like being exposed to something that perhaps you think you shouldn't be. Right? Like my example of like The Simpsons is good, right? My example of Star Trek is good. Where like there is the potential for you to experience an idea or a concept or a storyline or whatever that like perhaps you feel you shouldn't, or it's too adult or it's too complex. And I feel like so much as a kid, your world is perhaps it's different for kids now, but definitely when we grew up, your world is dictated by access, right? What channels do we have? What books can I read? What spaces can I inhabit? What games do I have, right? Like it's all kind of very physical in its nature. Do I know a guy that has pay TV? Do I have the Nintendo cartridge for Donkey Kong or whatever? Like it was all very sort of like analog in that sense of like, do I have access to content or a thing? And one of the things that's happened with like the whole entire world becoming online forever, always in your fucking pocket is where previously merit used to be like I remember the first time I played Donkey Kong Country. I remember that so vividly. It was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my, this is crazy. And I think that one of the things that we've lost, and this is going to sound like an old man complaint, but I'm going somewhere that I promise, is like with everything being in your pocket all the time, or like, having access to everything all the time. the specialness of the interaction is lost in some sense, like the notion of I had to wait until Thursday 2 weeks from now, get on the bus to go to this place, to go to my friend's place, to get into the basement when his brother wasn't using the Nintendo so he could play Donkey Kong or whatever the fuck. Like, whatever those arbitrary restrictions were of just, like, physical space and limitations, or, like, my friend who has that VCR that I can use to record that VHS so we can go and watch that TV show or what have you. The barrier to accessing it meant that, like, you assessed it a lot more seriously. Like, you sort of had this sense of, like, content that you consumed as a kid, like there was friction to get to it. And I guess I wonder, and I guess I'm interested in it, like, because I don't have this experience, I wonder if now, like, if that doesn't exist, if it's like because the friction's gone, like, you know, kids just have like all the shit in their pocket all the time. And to our point before about, like, you know, well, if you have access to everything all the time, right, all the content all the time, any choice you want, the friction to leave that content is pretty minimal. Like, you can just, like, swipe off and go watch something else. And so when we talk about things of, like, you know, you want this oh, well, you know, anyone can make a film now. That's like a double-edged sword. Like, anyone can make a film, which is good. I think, like, people should have access to make art and make it affordably and make it good. But the trade-off seems to have been that, like, we've lost, like, some kind of heuristic or metric or measurement on the other side of, like, well, what, you know, how, like, what does good mean in what context? And we've lost the context. Like, good on a TikTok video is going viral. That's not the same thing as, like, art being good. It could just been a funny joke, and jokes are art, and that's fine. But, like, you know, in what capacity in 5 years, in 10 years is, like, something like, say, for example, the Batman going to be made, which isn't that weird of a film. Like, it's not that weird, but it's kind of weird for Hollywood. Like, it's grungy and it's weird.
It. Yeah.
It's, like, don't get me wrong, it's, like, one of my favorite films. Like, I fuck it rips. It's so cool and interesting and weird and emo, and, like, it's emo and it's cool it's so good. But, like, how long do we get to keep making stuff like that? Because that doesn't make sense on, like, a spreadsheet for a board of directors. And so I guess, like, not to end too negatively, but to kind of draw back to, like, a hopeful note, I think everything we talk about of, like, the TV shows that grew up on and, like, the experiences we had, like, presumably the generation that are coming up beneath us who have phones all the time and do these things, to do that, the fifth thing, whatever that is, hopefully, you know, in 20 years, 10 years, when they're our age and they're looking back on this stuff, they can kind of have, like, I don't know, like, similar kind of, not nostalgia, but they can look back on it with similar familiarity, and it, you know, be able to point to specific things. I think my biggest fear for culture, candidly, is they won't have specific things to point back on. They'll just sort of say, oh yeah, I remember TikTok, or I remember this thing. You know, they don't have the same things that we do to be able to be like, oh yeah, that VHS or that TV show, or even, like, you know, that Vine or whatever. Like, I think the homogenization of content and the flattening of the way we consume it, like, my biggest fear is, like, they just, you know, it goes in and it's has an outcome, and then it's gone forever. Like, that's the thing that stresses me out the most, because the fact that we're able to talk about this stuff and we have different emotions, you know, Connor could talk about Gravity Falls for, like, 3.5 hours, probably, like, 10 hours.
Probably more.
Probably more, and me and Damo can have, like, a side podcast about other stuff.
Let me out. Come on. Come on.
Like, that matters. Like, I think that's, like, really important. Like, I sound corny as fuck, but, like, I think that matters. Like that's important to us, and, like, is important that it exists. And it stresses me out that, like, I don't know, you know, you can watch 500 videos about people doing different dances or whatever on TikTok, and, like, there's just nothing that sticks with you, and, you know, you don't have those, you may not have those moments. You could, I don't know, but you may not have those moments of, like lying on the couch and watching something, and it just, like, genuinely changes you forever, like Gravity Falls did for Connor, and you know, like, The Simpsons might do, or what, like, I don't know, like, that, I feel like that's really important, and I sound like an old fogey, but like that worries me. Like there's something in that I think is really important, and it's important in the way that we consume and understand media. It's like there has to be some literacy and some reason to do it, not beyond consumption. Like, you know, you have to, there should be some outcome. And I feel like the existential dread at the moment is, what if consumption is the end? Like, there's no means to it. It's just like, what if you watch the video and it just occupied you for 8 seconds till you watch another ad? And that's really stressful. I think that's why I'm concerned with, where we're going creatively moving forward. But maybe it'll, you know, like, there are a lot of us still fighting for it, and there always will be. So I'm not that worried about it. I just think it's a different environment, and I hope that young folks these days will be able to have the same experiences we do, like, you know, 10, 15 years from now.
It's a very point. It's like, I trust that there will be another. If I'm sitting here and accidentally putting these stipulations of, like, constraint of what I can actually consume on me, by being like, oh, if I'm gonna watch Clone High, yeah, it's all up on YouTube, but I want to get the physical DVD releases because they were the Australian ones, and, like, you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm buying these physically. I'm making an effort to, like, search out stuff, and, well, obviously my method that I choose is a physical method of, like, going in and being like, oh, I've got the Blu-ray for The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, and, like, actively finding these weird movies in DVD form or stuff like that. And, like, having these weird stipulations of, like, yes, it's on this service, or yes, it's not anywhere, but, like, people will, I think curiosity will prevail enough to get people to, like, just look and find something, and then sit there on the couch and be like, yeah, wow.
Right. Yeah, I mean, your argument there is there will always be vinyl kids. There will always be vinyl kids who are like, I want to own the physical thing, which I don't think is, like, a bad argument. I just...
Obviously, like, again...
The incentive is lesser than it's ever been.
I think, yeah, no, fair. Like, it's because there's so much, it's difficult. But I feel like you just got to show the person the right thing, or, like, they will just stumble across the right thing. My brother, he's 6 years younger than me, and I offhandedly was like, oh, I want to watch Knives Out again, and he's never saw it. We watched it together, and just had the best time, and actively dragged us along to go and see Glass Onion in theaters, and then is actively, like, got into, like, Clue, the 1980s film.
Oh my god, can you please make him watch Brick? Ryan Johnson's first film.
I have to watch that one.
That film fucking rips.
I gotta find a place to watch it.
I like that. We need to wrap up soon, I'm sure, but, like, I like that.
Yeah.
One of Connor's concluding conceits is, like, yeah, one of the best living filmmakers. We watched one of his films, and my brother thought it was good, and then we watched another one, and he thought it was good. Like,
but
yeah,
what I
Ryan
mean
Johnson's
is, like,
a fucking genius.
what I mean is, like, through curiosity, he went and just did his own. Like, he's like, oh, like, he found something by just someone showing him something. Like, it's gonna. Like, Like, it's going to, like.
I understand your point.
If I can accidentally get my brother into art.
Yeah, but I guess, like, yes, no, I agree. I'm being unnecessarily difficult here. I guess you're not wrong. My takeaway would be, I think that as long as there are enough people shouting in the right ways, quietly in the right ways at the right times, like, hey, like you did to your brother, hey, like, have you seen Knives Out? Like, I think that as long as we hold on to that, we should be fine. But, or perhaps, however, you know, those voices have been systematically made equivalent to, like, the other stuff. Like, that was my point before.
Why my ham? I don't know about this.
Yeah, or, like, whatever. Of, like, here's a trend you didn't know about, or, like, here's this celebrity. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to sound too nihilistic. But it just.
I get it. It is a concern. My roommate and I sit and chat about this just a lot. We sit and talk about, like, media and hoping, and it's been nice sitting through movies and like sitting through me being like, I finally was able to have I was able to scrounge the money together to buy Everything Everywhere All at Once. Let's watch it, and then just walk away being like, oh wow, yeah, that was a time. I have to go to work tomorrow.
Right.
But like, and again, for every like person who's sitting there scrolling through and having just a blur, there will be just enough people I trust who will just be scrounging it through and be like, hey, I found this weird like Blu-ray, and we have like the PlayStation 35 or whatever. We could okay, that's old.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But like
I
the thing of like,
disagree.
we'll find someone who could dig through and be like, I found, like, what's another weird movie I have? I found Mystery Men. Let's chuck that on.
Jesus,
What is
yeah.
this? And then check it out and be like, oh, huh. The 90s were weird.
Look, I will concede that there will always be Connors in the world. I guess I'm more concerned for the Damos and the Davids of the world.
But don't worry, there will be enough Connors to find enough Damos to be like, hey, we should watch something. And Damos, like, got their own obscure stuff that they'll... well, not obscure, but, like, they'll have their own curiosities that they were introduced to the Connors, and...
My
it
league
will
is video
eventually
games, not
expand.
movies.
Yes, but also, you're sitting here being like, I grew up on Sailor Moon, and I'm sitting here being like, I didn't.
I didn't grow up on... What? I didn't grow up on Sailor Moon.
Sorry.
I'm just getting
Like,
into
we did a
Sailor
whole
Moon.
show about, like, literally 2 hours of being like, what's your favorite kids TV show? You pick one that Damo hadn't mentioned at all.
On that note, I've been Connor.
Damn it.
Gee, I don't know what I've been, but I've been here for it.
I feel embarrassed. But as the end of the show, we now wish a wonderful good night to the viewers.
It was lovely having you here, by the way.
It's been good having you here, David. It's been a
Oh,
lot
at
of
first
fun.
I was like, is Damo talking to Connor? That seems weirdly self-serving. Like,
but
okay,
lovely,
alright, guys,
but lovely
sorry,
having
I'll
you
step
here,
away
Connor.
from
But
it.
anyway,
Who's this
David and
guy
I are
over
gonna
here?
make an actual podcast.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll probably have you on some other time to talk like Simpsons
yeah.
or one of the other things we mentioned like an
One
hour
of the billion ideas we
ago
had.
that we
Yeah,
that were like, that's a good idea to do, and then ended up talking about.
Yeah, I ain't trying to leave.
But yeah, actually, before we say goodnight to everyone, where can people find you?
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. I'm kind of off. So here's the challenge. I don't really do any. I'm offline these days. But where you can find me is you can find me at ZeroIndent.com, where I do all my like. That's my publication. I have a book coming up based on my podcast, Give Up After 3. You can just Google Give Up After 3. You'll find it. It is a historical analysis of BBC Sherlock's lost final episode, where the show was so badly written at the time on the internet. And basically, like, the book and the show are kind of like a historical analysis of why the internet thought that there was a secret final episode that existed that would explain why the show's badness had been on purpose. It's been such a fascinating experiment. Season 4 should be out probably like a week or two after you hear this. And then the book should be out in March of 2023. So that's the big thing I got going. Otherwise, you can find my other books at manartrick.com. That's where you can find me. Otherwise, I'll be sort of lurking in the background, waiting to talk about The Simpsons.
Hell yeah.
Wait to talk about The Simpsons or Booba whenever that.
Apparently,
topic comes
I'll
up.
tap out on that one.
Yeah, me and
Aw.
Connor doing a 2-hour video essay on Booba. Like, let's go.
It's weird
Like,
how
what's up?
politically, like, I wasn't expecting that turn in episode 65.
Right, yeah. It's like episode 7, he had some weird Marxist ideas, man. I don't know. Like, that's crazy. They were saying that shit about Derrida. I don't know.
The way that this episode comments on Margaret Thatcher, I was not expecting.
Because she's my Iron Lady, but she ain't that lady. Like,
But yeah, now that we've hit the 2 hour and 11 mark, which this is not going to be as edited down as it should be.
what bits would you cut? It's all gold.
I don't like probably like the very beginning and then like but not like I don't. I start I just don't cut to like where the intro starts. I cut to like around a nice time of the pre-dialogue beforehand, and then I just let it play out. And then every so often when there's a lot of blank space, I'll cut that. But aside from that, yeah, no, we'll just sit as a 2 hour. This has got to be one of the longest things I put up on the channel.
Yes, it is.
You're still talking. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes,
Yeah.
but yes, good night to the audience. Good night.
Yes, good night.
Good night and sleep well.
Enjoy your slumber.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Lovely TV shows and good times.